When the devil comes knocking at midnight demanding his due, you better make sure you're not the only one who knows how to play with fire. The knock came at exactly 12:07 a.m. 3 hard strikes against my front door, each one deliberate, spaced out like a countdown. I had been lying in bed, not quite asleep, my mind doing what it always does these days, running through my grandbaby's schedules, making mental grocery lists, wondering if my daughter Keisha remembered to eat dinner after her double shift at the hospital. But those knocks weren't random. They weren't desperate. They were calculated. I pulled my robe tight around my shoulders and moved through my house without turning on the lights. 63 years of living teaches you how to navigate your own space in darkness. My bare feet knew every creak in these wooden floors, every corner that needed avoiding. The brass doorknob was cold under my palm as I looked through the peephole. Marcus. Standing there under my porch light like a ghost from a nightmare we thought we'd escaped. My daughter's ex-husband. The man who had promised to love and cherish her, then spent 7 years systematically breaking her spirit, one cruel word at a time. The smell hit me the moment I cracked the door open. That expensive cologne he always wore, the one he bought with Keisha's money, now mixed with something else. Desperation, sweat, the sour tang of a man who'd been drinking but not enough to be drunk, just enough to be dangerous. "Miss Ruby," he said, and his voice had that fake smoothness he used to use at family dinners, right before he'd say something cutting to my daughter. "We need to talk." I kept the chain on the door, studying him through the gap. The Marcus standing before me wasn't the polished pharmaceutical sales rep who had charmed my daughter 8 years ago. This Marcus had lost weight in all the wrong places. His face looked hollow under those cheekbones that Keisha once said reminded her of a model's. His white dress shirt was wrinkled, untucked on one side. The wedding ring he used to flash around, the one Keisha saved for 6 months to buy him, was gone, leaving a pale indent on his finger like a scar. "It's past midnight, Marcus. Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying." His jaw tightened. There it was, that flash of anger he used to hide so well when they were dating. The monster that only showed itself after the wedding rings were exchanged. "I need $10,000, he said, dropping all pretense. "By morning, 8 a.m. sharp." I almost laughed, almost, but something in his eyes stopped me. This wasn't just greed or desperation. This was fear. Raw, primal fear. "And why would I give you $10,000? He leaned closer to the gap in the door, and I could see the veins in his neck pulsing. "Because if I don't get it, certain people are going to become very interested in your family, in where your grandbabies go to school. St. Catherine's Academy on Dearn Maple Street, right? Little Jasmine gets dropped off at 7:45, walks from the car to the front door all by herself like a big girl. And DJ, he stays late for basketball practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays, sometimes waits outside alone for his mom." My hand didn't shake, my voice didn't waver, but inside, something ancient and protective stirred. The same feeling I had when I was 23, holding baby Keisha while her father was deployed overseas. The feeling that said, "Nobody threatens what's mine." "You tracking my grandbabies, Marcus?" "I'm just saying," he continued, that oily confidence creeping back. "Bad things happen in this city. Would be a shame if something happened because their grandmother was too stubborn to help out family." Family. This man had the audacity to use that word after what he'd done. I studied his face in the porch light, the scattered look in his eyes, the way his fingers kept tapping against his thigh in a nervous rhythm, the slight bulk under his jacket that suggested he was carrying something he shouldn't be. I'd been preparing for this moment for 3 months, ever since my friend Dolores at the courthouse mentioned she'd seen Marcus's name on some interesting paperwork. Ever since my nephew Anthony, who works security at the casino, started seeing Marcus at the high-stakes tables, losing money he didn't have to lose. A wise woman prepares for war in times of peace. And baby, I'd been stockpiling ammunition since the day this man first made my daughter cry. "You threatening my grandbabies?" I asked, my voice calm as a lake before a storm. I'm stating facts, he said. 10,000 by morning, or I can't guarantee their safety. I nodded slowly, then began undoing the chain. Marcus's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected it to be this easy. The door swung open, and I stood there in my house robe and slippers, all 5'4" of me, looking up at this 6'2" man who thought height meant power. Come in, Marcus. We need to discuss this properly. But first, let me make us some tea. Marcus followed me into my kitchen, his expensive shoes clicking against my linoleum floor like a countdown clock. I moved with purpose, filling the kettle with water, listening to it rush from the tap while my mind traveled back through 3 years of carefully documented pain. The kitchen hadn't changed much since Keisha was little. Same yellow walls she helped me paint when she was 16. Same ceramic rooster on the windowsill that my mother gave me. Same wooden table where Keisha used to do her homework, where she later signed divorce papers with tears streaming down her face. I set the kettle on the stove, the blue flame jumping to life with a soft whoosh. Marcus sat at that table now, drumming his fingers impatiently. He had no idea he was sitting in the exact spot where Keisha sat the night she finally told me everything. 2:43 a.m., 18 months ago. I'd heard the front door open, those same footsteps I'd known since she learned to walk. Found her in her childhood bedroom, curled up on that twin bed we never got around to replacing, sobbing into the pillow she'd had since middle school, still wearing her scrubs from a 12-hour shift. "Mama," she'd whispered, "I can't do it anymore." The kettle began its slow build to a whistle while I pulled 2 cups from the cabinet. My good china, the ones with tiny painted roses. Marcus didn't deserve them, but this wasn't about what he deserved. This was about what needed to be done. That night, Keisha told me things that made my blood turn to ice water. How Marcus had convinced her to sign a prenup the morning of their wedding, saying it was just a formality, that his family's lawyer insisted on it. She was 24, in love, floating on happiness. She signed without reading, without knowing she was signing away her rights to everything, including her own earnings during the marriage. I opened my tea cabinet, fingers moving past the chamomile, past the green tea, settling on a special blend. Something with a little kick to it. Marcus had started small. Comments about her weight after Jasmine was born. Jokes about her career that weren't really jokes. "Why do you need to work so hard? I make enough money, unless you're trying to prove something." Then came the financial control. Joint accounts that somehow only he could access. Credit cards in her name that only he used. Her paychecks direct deposited into accounts he managed. The water was starting to sing now, that high-pitched whine before the full whistle. But the cruelest thing, the thing that made me start keeping records, taking pictures, making copies, was how he turned those babies against their own mother. "Daddy takes us for ice cream. Daddy lets us stay up late. Mommy's always tired. Mommy's always at work. Mommy doesn't love us as much as Daddy does." For 6 months, my grandbabies looked at their mother like she was a stranger. Jasmine, who used to run to Keisha for every scraped knee, started running to Marcus instead. DJ stopped telling his mother about his school days, saving all his stories for his father. The kettle screamed. I turned off the flame, the silence afterwards feeling heavy. Marcus shifted in his chair, probably wondering why I was taking so long. But tea can't be rushed, neither can justice. The affair was almost anticlimactic after everything else. Keisha's best friend since high school, Tanya, the woman who stood as maid of honor at their wedding, the one who held Keisha's hand during labor, the one whose shoulder Keisha cried on about her marriage problems, never knowing those tears were being reported back to Marcus, pillow talk in a bed that should have been sacred. I poured the water over the tea bags, watching the color bleed out, dark and purposeful. Keisha found them together in her own bed on a day she came home sick from work. Didn't make a scene, didn't scream. Just took pictures with her phone, walked to her car, and drove to my house. We sat right here at this kitchen table while she showed me the photos, her hands steady, her voice flat. I need to divorce him, Mama, but he's going to take everything. That's when I started making calls to my friend at the bank who noticed interesting patterns in certain accounts, to my cousin who works in IT and knows how to recover deleted texts, to my former coworker who retired from family court and still remembered every dirty trick in the book. 3 years of documentation sat in a safety deposit box downtown. Every financial transaction, every threatening text he thought he'd deleted, every recording from the doorbell camera he didn't know I'd installed, every single piece of evidence that showed Marcus Thompson for what he really was, a predator who thought he'd found easy prey. I set the cup in front of him, the ceramic making a soft clink against the wooden table. The steam rose between us like a veil. The tea was ready, but more importantly, so was I. Because what Marcus didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this night longer than he could imagine. Marcus wrapped his hands around the teacup like he was holding a lifeline, not drinking, just gripping. The steam fogged his glasses. Those designer frames Keisha bought him for Christmas 3 years ago, now slightly bent at the temple. "Let me be clear," he said, setting the cup down hard enough to rattle the saucer. "This isn't a request. I have friends, connected friends, the kind who don't take no for an answer." I sipped my tea slowly, tasting the hint of honey I'd added to mine. Let him talk. Men like Marcus always revealed more when they thought they were in control. "Your granddaughter walks to school every morning, cuts through Lincoln Park at 7:45. Your grandson, DJ, he's got that basketball tournament next week. Big game Friday night. Lots of crowds, lots of chaos. Easy for a kid to get lost in all that excitement." My finger traced the rim of my cup in a slow circle. "You've been following my grandbabies for how long, Marcus?" He leaned back, a smile spreading across his face that didn't reach his eyes. "Long enough to know their routines. Long enough to know Keisha works double shifts on Wednesdays, leaves them with that babysitter on Crescent Street, the one who's usually on her phone while the kids play. Michelle," I said quietly. "Her name is Michelle. Single mother of 2, working on her nursing degree online." His smile faltered for just a second. "Tell me something, Marcus," I continued, reaching for the sugar bowl, adding another cube to my tea with deliberate slowness. "This $10,000, that enough to cover what you owe the Brennan brothers?" The color drained from his face like water from a bathtub. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "How did you— or is it more than that now? Interest compounds daily with them, doesn't it? Started at $5,000 6 weeks ago, but you missed the first payment, then the second. They added that 30% penalty. Then you borrowed more to try to win it back at their table in the back room of O'Sullivan's." His breathing had changed, shorter now, shallower. The hand that had been drumming on the table went still. "You don't know what you're talking about." I pulled my phone from my robe pocket, swiped to a photo, and slid it across the table. Marcus at a poker table, head in his hands, chips gone, Patrick Brennan's hand on his shoulder. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. 3 nights ago. That's right after you lost the last of Tanya's money, isn't it? The $8,000 she thought was going toward a new apartment for you two. She doesn't know you gambled it away yet, does she? Marcus grabbed the phone, staring at the image. "Where did you get this?" "Same place I got this one." I swiped to the next photo. Marcus's car parked outside a pawn shop, him carrying in a box. Those were Tanya's grandmother's jewelry pieces, weren't they? The ones she keeps in that safe she thinks you don't know the combination to? His grip on my phone tightened until his knuckles went white. "And this one's my personal favorite." Another swipe. Marcus in the parking lot of St. Catherine's Academy, my granddaughter's school, taken from inside a car. "That's my nephew Anthony's car you're reflected in. He's been watching you watch them. Funny thing about threatening children, it makes people pay attention." Marcus shoved the phone back across the table. "You don't understand. These people, the Brennans, they don't play games. If I don't pay them by 8 a.m., they'll what? Break your legs? Kill you?" I stirred my tea, the spoon making soft circles against the china. "No, baby. The Brennan brothers are businessmen. They'll take your car first. Then they'll go after your job. Oh, wait. You got fired from Pharmatech 2 weeks ago for stealing samples. Then they'll go after whatever assets you have left. His mouth opened, closed, opened again like a fish gasping for air. How long did you think you could hide that from Tanya? Or were you planning to run with my $10,000? Leave her to deal with the mess like you left Keisha? Listen, old woman. No, you listen. My voice stayed level, conversational even. You came into my home at midnight. You threatened my grandbabies. You tried to extort money from me. And you thought what? That I'd cower? That I'd scramble to my savings and hand over my retirement? He stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. I'm not playing around. You don't give me that money, and I'll make sure. Sit down, Marcus. Something in my tone made him pause. Not fear, not anger, just certainty. You want to know how I know about the Brennans, about your job, about Tanya's jewelry? I stood up slowly, all 5 feet 4 inches of me, looking up at him without a hint of intimidation. Because unlike you, I don't make threats I can't back up, and I don't start fights I haven't already won. He sank back into the chair, the bravado leaking out of him like air from a punctured tire. Marcus, baby, you came here thinking I was just some old woman you could intimidate. Let me tell you about the last man who made that mistake. His name was Jerome Wallace, I began, settling back into my chair with the ease of someone about to tell a bedtime story. 6'5", 240 pounds of muscle and bad decisions. Thought because I was the quiet lady who watered her garden in house slippers that he could run his drug operation from the abandoned house 3 doors down. Marcus's eyes darted toward the door, then back to me. That was 8 years ago. Jerome's doing 15 to 20 upstate now. Would you like to know how that happened? I didn't wait for an answer. From the drawer beneath the table, the one that used to hold Keisha's coloring books, I pulled out a thick folder. The kind they used to use at the district attorney's office. The kind I'd filed thousands of times over 30 years. See, Marcus, you know me as Keisha's mother. The grandmother who bakes cookies for bake sales and volunteers at the church. What you don't know is that from 1984 to 2014, I was the administrative assistant to 3 different district attorneys in this city. 30 years of typing up case files, 30 years of scheduling meetings, 30 years of listening to conversations people thought I wasn't important enough to notice. I opened the folder, spreading photographs across the table like tarot cards revealing his future. You know Judge Harrison? Tough on crime Harrison who sent your cousin up for grand theft auto? His daughter had a stalker 10 years ago. I'm the one who made sure that problem went away quietly. He sends me a Christmas card every year, handwritten. Marcus stared at the photos. Him entering O'Sullivan's through the back door. Him at underground poker games in Chinatown. Him meeting with Bobby Torino, a known loan shark who worked the South Side. Detective Patricia Williams, head of the organized crime unit? I trained her when she was a rookie clerk, scared of her own shadow. Now she runs the task force that's been watching the Brennan brothers for 2 years. I pulled out another photo. This one was different. Marcus in a parking garage taking an envelope from a man in a suit. Thomas Chen, Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District. I helped his mother with her citizenship papers in '97 when the system tried to deport her on a technicality. You met with his informant last Tuesday? Did you know that? Or did you think Carl was just another gambler? Marcus's hand trembled as he reached for the photo. That's impossible. Carl's been running games for the FBI for the last 18 months. Turns out tax evasion is still how they get most of these guys, just like Capone. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts. Would you like to see my phone book? Father Mackenzie, who hears more confessions than anybody in the city. Dr. Patricia Young at Memorial Hospital, who treated your gambling injuries last month. Yes, I know about the beating you took behind the warehouse. Maria Santos, who runs the largest private security firm in the state. Her boys have been watching my house since the day you and Keisha separated. The folder contained more than just photos. Receipts, bank statements, text message transcripts. 3 years of Marcus Thompson's life laid out like evidence in a case that had already been tried and won. But here's my favorite part, I continued, pulling out a handwritten list. The Brennan brothers? Patrick and Sean? Their mother, Rosie Brennan, goes to my church, sits 2 pews behind me every Sunday. Lovely woman, makes the best soda bread you've ever tasted. She called me tonight, actually, worried about her boys getting mixed up with, and I quote, that no good ex-husband of sweet Keisha's. Marcus's face had gone from pale to almost green. You see, baby, this city might look big, but it's really just a small town where everybody knows everybody if you've been here long enough. And I've been here my whole life. 63 years of Sunday dinners, church socials, PTA meetings, and coffee with the ladies who know everything about everyone. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to almost a whisper. There's a network in this city, Marcus. Not the kind you're thinking of. Not criminals or corrupt cops. Just people who've helped each other over the years. People who remember favors. People who pay attention. And every single one of them knows who Miss Ruby is. I pulled out one final item, a small digital recorder, its red light blinking steadily. This has been recording since you knocked on my door. Your threats against my grandbabies. Your admission about the gambling debts. Your confession about stalking children at their school. Anthony, you remember Anthony, my nephew? He's parked outside right now with his partner. They're both off duty, but funny thing about threatening kids. Cops tend to take that personally whether they're on the clock or not. The kitchen felt smaller now, the walls closing in on Marcus as the weight of reality settled on his shoulders. So when I got a call 3 hours ago that you were coming here tonight, I had time to make some arrangements. I closed the folder with a soft snap that echoed in the quiet kitchen. The only other sound was the tick of the clock above the stove. 12:47 a.m. now. Time moved different in moments like these, thick and slow like molasses. Here's what's going to happen, I said, pulling a manila envelope from beneath the folder. Inside this envelope is a cashier's check for $11,000, enough to pay the Brennan brothers their 10 plus interest for being late. Marcus's eyes locked onto that envelope like a drowning man seeing a life preserver. But it comes with conditions. His jaw tightened. I knew there'd be a catch. The catch is simple. You sign these papers. I produced a second set of documents, crisp and official looking. Full termination of parental rights, no visitation, no contact, no birthday cards, no showing up at school plays, no accidentally running into them at the mall. You become what you've always been in their hearts, nothing. The muscle in his cheek twitched. You can't make me sign away my kids. I'm not making you do anything. I'm offering you a solution. You take this money, pay your debts, and disappear. Tonight. There's a Greyhound bus leaving at 3:15 a.m. for Atlanta. Your ticket's already purchased. He stood up slowly, his chair groaning against the floor. You think you're smart, don't you? Think you've got it all figured out? I think I'm prepared. There's a difference. His hand slammed down on the table, making the teacups jump. Those are my children, my blood. You can't just erase me from their lives. You erased yourself the day you chose gambling over their college funds, the day you chose your addiction over their stability. I'm just making it official. He moved faster than I expected for a man who'd been shaking 5 minutes ago. Lunged across the table, his hand reaching for my throat. But he stopped midway, frozen, his eyes fixed on something behind me. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The voice came from my tablet propped on the counter, a video call I'd initiated the moment Marcus sat down. My nephew Anthony's face filled the screen, his police sergeant badge visible even in the dim light of his patrol car. Anthony's been listening to everything, I said calmly, not moving an inch despite Marcus's hand hovering inches from my neck. Along with Officer Martinez, who's recording this officially. Wave hello, Officer Martinez. A hand appeared on screen, waving. Marcus pulled back, stumbling slightly. But that's not the only recording. I pointed to the smoke detector above us, the one with a tiny lens most people never noticed. That's been running since you arrived. Then to the carbon monoxide detector by the door. That one too. The decorative clock on the wall. And that one's my favorite. HD quality. Got it on sale last Black Friday. I picked up my phone, swiping to an audio file. Marcus's voice filled the kitchen. Your granddaughter walks to school every darn morning. Cuts through Lincoln Park at 7:45. Then, if I don't get it, certain people are going to become very interested in your family. And finally, you don't give me that money and I'll make sure I stop the playback. Every threat, every admission, every detail about stalking my grandbabies, all documented, time-stamped, and backed up to 3 different cloud services. Marcus sank into his chair like someone had cut his strings. You recorded everything. Everything, including your confession about stealing from Tanya. She doesn't know yet, does she? But she will if you don't take my offer. See, I've got her number. We've become quite friendly since you started dating her. She texts me sometimes, asking about recipes Keisha used to make. Sweet girl, deserves better than finding out from the police that her boyfriend stole her grandmother's heirlooms. I slid the papers across the table again, this time with a pen. Sign the papers, take the money, get on that bus, start fresh somewhere else. Maybe get help for your gambling. Become the man you pretended to be when you met my daughter. And if I don't, then Anthony and Officer Martinez come inside. You're arrested for criminal threats, attempted extortion, and stalking minors. The recordings go to the DA's office, my old office, where people still remember me. Your photo goes to every school in the district as a security threat. And the Brennan brothers? They find out their money is now tied up as evidence in a criminal investigation. You know how they feel about attracting police attention to their operations. The pen sat between us like a loaded gun. Marcus looked at the papers, then at the check, then at the screen where Anthony waited patiently, hand resting on his service weapon. You have 2 choices, Marcus. Take my offer or explain to the Brennan brothers why their money is now evidence in a criminal case. The pen remained untouched on the table, Marcus staring at it like it might bite him. I could see the calculations running behind his eyes. Pride versus survival, ego versus reality. Men like him always needed one more push to fall. Let me help you decide, I said, picking up my phone. Anthony, you still there, baby? Yes, Auntie. His voice came clear through the tablet speaker. Go ahead and call it in, everything you heard. Marcus's head snapped up. Wait! I held up one finger, silencing him. Anthony's voice carried on, professional now, no longer the nephew who used to eat Sunday dinner at this table. Dispatch, this is Sergeant Williams, badge number 479. I need to report criminal threats against minors at 1427 Magnolia Lane. Suspect is Marcus Thompson, black male, 35 years old. We have recorded evidence of stalking, criminal threats, and attempted extortion. Requesting backup for arrest? The dispatcher's response crackled through. Copy that, Sergeant. Units are en route. ETA 4 minutes. 4 minutes, I repeated, looking at Marcus. That's how long you have to sign those papers, unless you'd prefer to have this conversation downtown? Marcus's hand moved toward the pen, then stopped. You're bluffing. Anthony wouldn't. Anthony's the one who installed these cameras after you showed up at Jasmine's dance recital, uninvited. He takes threats against family very personally. My phone was already dialing the second number. It rang twice before a gravelly voice answered. Rosie, it's late for you to be calling. Patrick, I said warmly, putting the phone on speaker. I'm sorry to wake you, but we need to discuss Marcus Thompson. The temperature in my kitchen seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus went rigid. Patrick Brennan's voice lost its sleepy quality. What about him? He's sitting in my kitchen right now. Seems he owes you some money. A long pause. 10,000 plus interest due 5 hours ago. And what happens when someone brings police attention to your business, Patrick? Another pause, longer this time. That would be unfortunate, bad for everyone involved. That's what I thought. Now Marcus here has 2 options. He can take the money I'm offering and pay you within the hour. Clean, quiet, done. Or he can be arrested in... I glanced at the clock. 3 minutes and your money becomes evidence. Federal evidence if my contacts at the FBI task force have anything to say about it. I could hear Patrick breathing, processing. Miss Ruby, are you saying this fool is about to bring federal heat to my operation? That's exactly what I'm saying, unless he signs some papers and gets on a bus tonight. Put him on. I slid the phone toward Marcus. His hand shook as he picked it up. Patrick, You listened to me very carefully. Patrick's voice was soft, which made it more terrifying. If cops show up at my place because of you, if my business gets disrupted because of you, if I even get a parking ticket because of you, we're going to have a different kind of conversation. You understand? Yes. Take Miss Ruby's deal. Take it now. The line went dead. Marcus set the phone down like it was made of glass. 2 minutes, Anthony announced from the tablet. I was already dialing the third number. This time, I turned away slightly, speaking in a lower tone, just loud enough for Marcus to hear fragments. Yes, it's me. He's here now. You're watching the apartment. Good. Yes, she's still there. The jewelry box is where? Behind the bathroom tile? Interesting. Marcus lunged for the phone. Who are you talking to? I stepped back smoothly, continuing my conversation. No, don't do anything yet. Just document everything, the pawnshop receipt too? Perfect. You have someone at my apartment. I ended the call, slipping the phone into my pocket. Marcus, when a man threatens my grandbabies, I don't just protect them. I learn everything about him, where he lives, who he loves, what he's hiding. You can't, Tanya's about to get a very interesting text message. Photos of pawnshop receipts, bank statements showing withdrawals from her account, security footage of you taking money from her purse at the CVS while she was in the bathroom. His face had gone past pale to gray. That's illegal. You can't what? Have a friend who works security at CVS pull footage after you threaten my family? Can't have another friend who works at the pawn shop on Riverside take photos of suspicious transactions? Baby, that's not illegal. That's community watch. 1 minute, Anthony called out. I could hear sirens in the distance now, faint but getting louder. Marcus grabbed the pen, his signature scratching across the papers so fast the ink barely had time to flow. There. Done. Give me the money. I slid the check across the table. The bus ticket is in there too. You have 45 seconds to get to your car. He snatched the envelope and bolted for the door, then stopped, turning back. That third call, who was it really? The sirens were getting closer, maybe 2 blocks away now. The third call? Oh, baby, that was to make sure your girlfriend knows about the money you stole from her purse last week. Marcus's phone erupted before he could reach the door. Not one notification, not two, but a cascade of pings, buzzes, and rings that lit up his screen like a slot machine hitting the jackpot. Except this wasn't a win. He froze in my doorway, the envelope with the check clutched in one hand, his phone in the other. The sirens were maybe 30 seconds out now, their wailing cutting through the night. You should probably check those, I said, settling back into my kitchen chair, calm as Sunday morning. His thumb swiped across the screen. I watched his face change with each message, like watching a building collapse floor by floor. First text from Tanya. I know everything, the jewelry, the money, everything, don't come back. Your stuff will be on the curb. Second, from someone saved as Joey Cards. Heard you're talking to cops, bad move. Third, from his landlord. Police are here with a warrant. Rent's overdue anyway, you're evicted. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on speaker without thinking, his hands shaking too hard to hold it to his ear. Mr. Thompson? This is Detective Walsh. We're at your residence executing a search warrant. We need you to come in for questioning regarding theft charges filed by Ms. Tanya Morrison. Marcus hung up without responding. Another text popped up immediately, this one from a number he clearly recognized because his whole body went rigid. Your boy Carl told us about the dice game last week, the one where you cheated. We don't like cheaters. I stood up, walked to my filing cabinet, the one that used to hold Keisha's school papers, and pulled out a fresh folder. This one was red, blood red. 6 months ago, I began, laying out the first photograph. You drove past Keisha's work 17 times in 1 week. She didn't see you, but this camera did. I tapped the traffic cam screenshot showing his car, date, and time stamped. Another photo. 4 months ago, you followed her to the grocery store, stood 3 aisles over watching. She felt something was wrong but couldn't place it. My investigator could. Marcus's phone kept pinging. Each sound made him flinch. Who, who hired an investigator? I did. The day after you accidentally showed up at DJ's baseball game, the one you weren't supposed to know about. Another photo. Marcus in the bleachers, baseball cap pulled low, thinking he was invisible. That's not illegal. Watching from a distance isn't. This is. I laid down the most damning photo. Marcus at Keisha's apartment complex at 2 a.m. trying her door handle. That's criminal trespass, attempted breaking and entering, violation of the protective order filed 16 months ago. His phone rang again. This time, it was a FaceTime call from Tanya. He declined it. She called back immediately. You should answer that, I suggested. She deserves to look you in the eye. He accepted the call with a trembling finger. Tanya's face filled the screen, tears streaming, but her eyes hard as granite. I'm at the pawn shop, she said. They're showing me the security footage. My grandmother's wedding ring, Marcus. Her wedding ring that survived the Holocaust. You pawned it for $800. Baby, I can explain. The owner called the police. He recognized it from the Heritage Registry. Stolen Holocaust survivor artifacts is a federal crime, Marcus. Federal. She hung up. The screen went black. I pulled out one more set of photos. These were different. These showed Marcus's entire network, every bookie, every dealer, every connection he thought he had. Your friend Tommy Knuckles? He got picked up an hour ago on unrelated charges, suddenly very talkative about his client list. Bobby the Fish? His wife got an anonymous tip about his girlfriend. He's got bigger problems than your debt now. Every single person you could run to, every favor you could call in, they're all dealing with their own fires right now. You did this. You orchestrated all of this. No, baby, you did this. 3 years ago, when you put your hands on my daughter for the first time, when you thought leaving bruises where clothes would cover them made you smart, when you taught my grandbabies that love came with conditions and criticism. I walked to my window, pulling back the curtain. 3 police cars were parked outside, lights off but engines running. They're not here for you, not yet. Anthony told them to wait, to give you time to get on that bus, but that window is closing. Marcus's phone lit up with a notification from his bank. Account overdrawn. Another from his credit card. Frozen for suspicious activity. His entire financial life was combusting in real time. The private investigator, Mr. Cornelius Washington, retired FBI, has been documenting everything for 6 months. Every violation, every threat, every crime. It's all admissible in court. All of it. Marcus looked at me. And for the first time since he'd knocked on my door, I saw him really see me. Not as Keisha's mother, not as an old woman, but as what I truly was. A grandmother who'd spent 30 years learning how the system worked, then another 10 learning how to work the system. You thought you were hunting my family, but baby, you've been in my web since the day you hurt my daughter. The kitchen clock read 1:02 a.m. Outside, Anthony's silhouette moved across my front lawn, speaking quietly into his radio. The other officers waited in their vehicles, patient as cats watching a mouse hole. Marcus stood in the center of my kitchen floor like a man balanced on the edge of a cliff, the signed papers in one hand, the check in the other. But something in his stance said he still didn't believe this was real, that somewhere in his mind he thought he could find a way out. Sit down, I said, not unkindly. One more time. He sank into the chair, deflated, the swagger gone, the threats gone. Just a broken man whose chickens had finally come home to roost. I pulled out another set of documents, these thicker, more official, blue backing sheets with gold seals. These are the permanent custody papers. Keisha gets full legal custody, no appeals, no visitation petitions in 6 months claiming you've changed, no grandparents' rights lawsuits. You sign these, and in the eyes of the law, you cease to be their father. I already signed. Those were termination of parental rights. These are the companion documents. Custody transfer, medical decision authority, educational guardianship. My lawyer friend Margaret spent all evening preparing these. She's very thorough. Went to Howard Law, worked civil rights cases for 30 years before she retired. She doesn't like men who hurt women. I spread the documents across the table, each one a nail in the coffin of his connection to my grandbabies. You'll notice the effective date is tonight. The moment you sign, it's done. No waiting period, no cooling off period. Margaret called in a favor with a judge who's standing by to file these electronically at 1:30 a.m. Marcus's phone buzzed again. He didn't even look at it anymore. "Does Keisha know?" he asked, his voice hollow. "Does she know you're doing this?" "No. My daughter is sleeping peacefully in her apartment, alarm set for 6 a.m. so she can get the kids ready for school. She doesn't know you came here. She doesn't know you threatened her babies, and if I have my way, she never will." His head jerked up. "Why?" "Because she's been through enough. Because she's finally sleeping through the night without nightmares. Because she's finally started dating again. A nice man who coaches DJ's basketball team and makes her laugh. Because she deserves peace, and knowing you were here would steal that from her." I sat down across from him, my hands folded on the table like we were having tea and discussing the weather. "You want to know what kind of grandmother I am, Marcus? I'm the kind who handles the monsters in the night so my children don't have to. I'm the kind who learned a long time ago that sometimes love means making hard choices that nobody else can know about. That sometimes protecting your family means getting your hands dirty in ways they'll never understand." His eyes were red now, whether from exhaustion or the reality settling in, I couldn't tell. "I never meant to," he started. "Yes, you did. Men like you always mean to. You meant to control. You meant to dominate. You meant to make yourself feel big by making others feel small. What you didn't mean was to get caught, to face consequences, to lose." I pushed the papers closer to him, the pen resting on top like a sentinel. "That bus leaves in 2 hours and 13 minutes. It'll take you 40 minutes to get to the station. Another 20 to cash that check at the 24-hour place on 5th Street. That gives you 73 minutes to decide who you're going to be. The man who keeps destroying lives, or the man who walks away and lets healing begin." Outside, a car door closed softly. Anthony's shadow passed by the window again. "Everything you built here, your reputation, your connections, your access to my family, it's already gone. I didn't just prepare for tonight, Marcus. I prepared for every night after. Every judge, every clerk, every officer who might process a petition from you. They all have files now. They all know your history. You could hire the best lawyer in the state, and you'd still lose because the truth is documented, filed, and sealed. The pen sat there between us, black ink in a silver barrel, a simple object that would change everything. Sign the papers, take the money, get on the bus, start over somewhere else, maybe become someone better. Or refuse and face federal charges for the Holocaust ring, state charges for stalking, civil suits from Tanya, and whatever the Brennan brothers do when men bring heat to their operation. His hand reached for the pen, pulled back, reached again. The tremor in his fingers had gotten worse. "You never gave me a real choice," he whispered. "No," I agreed. "But you stopped having choices the day you raised your hand to my daughter. Every action after that was just you walking down the path you chose. I'm just showing you where it ends." The pen trembled in his hand, but we both knew he had no choice. Sometimes the best revenge is simply removing a cancer before it spreads. The first rays of sunlight broke through my kitchen window at 6:47 a.m., turning the same table where Marcus had sat in darkness into something warm and golden. I'd already been up for an hour, couldn't sleep even if I wanted to. Some nights change you. Some decisions, once made, hum in your bones until you see them through to daylight. The signed papers sat in my safe. The check had been cashed at 2:15 a.m. I got the bank notification on my phone. The bus manifest showed one Marcus Thompson checked in for the 3:15 departure to Atlanta. Anthony confirmed he'd watched the bus pull away from the station before finally heading home to his own family. Now I stood at my stove, flipping pancakes, the butter sizzling and popping in the cast iron skillet my mother gave me 40 years ago. The same skillet that made breakfast for Keisha when she was small. The same one that would make breakfast for my grandbabies today. I heard them before I saw them. Jasmine's laugh tinkling down the stairs like wind chimes. DJ's heavier footsteps trying to race past her. They'd spent the night, a sleepover Keisha arranged 2 days ago because she had an early shift. Perfect timing, though she didn't know it. Perfect protection. Grandma. Jasmine burst into the kitchen, 8 years old and all energy. Her braids still neat from yesterday because I'd wrapped them in her silk scarf before bed. Are those chocolate chip? What kind of grandmother would I be if they weren't? DJ followed, 12 and trying to act too cool for excitement. But his eyes lit up when he saw the stack growing on the plate. Mom said she's picking us up before school. That's right, baby. About another hour. You've got time to eat and tell me about that science project you're working on. They settled at the table, the same chairs, but the energy was completely different now. Jasmine kicked her legs while she ate, telling me about her friend's birthday party next week. DJ showed me a video on his phone of a trick shot some basketball player made. His voice animated, his guard down. Safe. They were safe. The doorbell rang at 7:30. Through the window, I saw Keisha's car in the driveway, my daughter climbing out in her scrubs, her face relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in years. Not the tight, anxious expression she wore when Marcus was in her life. Not the haunted look she had after the divorce. Just peaceful. Mom! She hugged me at the door, smelling like hospital soap and her favorite vanilla lotion. Thank you for keeping them. I hope they weren't too much trouble. Never. You know they're always welcome. The kids gathered their backpacks, Jasmine chattering about the pancakes, DJ already asking his mom if they could stop for his favorite breakfast sandwich anyway. Keisha laughed, a real laugh, the kind that reached her eyes. Oh, I meant to tell you, she said as she helped Jasmine with her jacket. The strangest thing happened. I got a text this morning from Tanya. My hand stilled on the dish towel. Tanya, your old friend. Ex-friend. She said Marcus left town, just gone. Apparently he's moving to Atlanta, and she found out he'd been stealing from her. She apologized for everything with him. Said she should have believed me about who he really was. I folded the towel carefully, precisely. How do you feel about that? Keisha was quiet for a moment, watching her children play fight over who got the front seat. Relieved. Is that terrible? I just feel relieved. Like I can finally breathe all the way. Like maybe we can move forward without looking over our shoulders. That's not terrible, baby. That's healing. She hugged me again, tighter this time. I don't know what I'd do without you, Mama. You'll never have to find out. After they left, I stood on my porch, watching their car disappear down the street. The morning was beautiful. Clear sky, birds singing, Mrs. Patterson from next door watering her roses. Ruby, she called out, waving. Did you see all the commotion last night? Police cars on the street around 1 a.m. I did. Everything all right? Oh, just fine. They were helping someone, I think. But speaking of strange, I saw moving trucks at that Marcus Fellow's apartment at 5 this morning. The one who used to be married to Keisha. Just loading up and leaving before the sun was even up properly. Odd time to move, don't you think? Very odd, I agreed. But maybe he had his reasons. Well, good riddance if you ask me. Never did like how he looked at people, like he was sizing them up for something. Mrs. Patterson went back to her roses, and I went back inside my house. The kitchen was clean now, all evidence of breakfast put away. All evidence of midnight meetings erased. The folders were back in my filing cabinet. The recording devices still there, still working, still protecting. I made myself a cup of tea. The good kind, not the kind I'd given Marcus, and sat at my table. The same table where my grandbabies had just eaten chocolate chip pancakes. The same table where I dismantled a man's life 6 hours ago. Both acts done out of love, both necessary. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret, my lawyer friend. Documents filed and processed. Judge signed off at 2:47 a.m. It's done. He's legally erased. Another text, this one from Anthony. Bus arrived in Atlanta at 11:23 a.m. He got off. My buddy at Atlanta PD will keep an eye out, make sure he stays there. And finally, one from Rosie Brennan. Patrick said the debt was settled. Thank you for handling that situation. My boys don't need that kind of trouble. See you at church Sunday? I'm making soda bread. I responded to each one with simple thank yous, then deleted the messages. Keisha would never know about last night. The children would never know how close danger had come. They would grow up thinking their father simply left, moved on, chose not to be part of their lives. They would never know about the threats, the stalking, the midnight confrontation, and that was exactly how it should be. Some battles are fought in courtrooms, some in the street, but the most important ones? Those are fought in the shadows by grandmothers who love too hard to let evil win. 6 months later, Jasmine stood on a step stool beside me at the same kitchen counter, her small hands carefully measuring flour into the mixing bowl. Saturday morning baking had become our tradition, just the two of us, while DJ was at basketball practice and Keisha worked her half shift at the hospital. "Grandma," Jasmine asked, her voice careful like she'd been holding the question for a while, "why doesn't my daddy ever come visit us?" I kept my hands moving, stirring the batter in smooth, even circles. This question had been coming. I'd prepared for it the same way I prepared for everything else. Sometimes, baby girl, grown-ups make choices. Your daddy made a choice to start a new life somewhere else. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It means he had things he needed to work on by himself. Does he love us? I stopped stirring, turned to face her fully. 8 years old, and already learning that love isn't always enough when it comes wrapped in the wrong package. I think he loves the idea of you, but real love isn't just a feeling, Jasmine. Real love is showing up. Real love is protecting. Real love is putting someone else's needs before your own, and your daddy wasn't able to do that. She absorbed this quietly, then went back to cracking eggs. I like Mr. Anthony better anyway. I smiled. Anthony, not my nephew, a different Anthony, was the basketball coach who'd been dating Keisha for 4 months now. 4 months after I'd run a background check, talked to 3 of his ex-girlfriends, confirmed his employment history, and had coffee with his mother twice. He'd passed every test without knowing he was being tested. Mr. Anthony is a good man, I agreed. And you know how I know? How? Because he treats your mama like she's valuable. He listens when she talks, and he asked my permission before he asked her to be his girlfriend. Jasmine giggled. That's old-fashioned, Grandma. That's respect, baby. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Anthony, my nephew this time. Monthly check-in. Subject still in Atlanta, employed at a warehouse, attending GA meetings, no social media, no contact attempts, all quiet. Marcus had stayed gone. The Brennan brothers' debt had been mysteriously settled in full, 2 weeks after he left. A charitable donation from an anonymous benefactor, which is what you call it when a grandmother decides mercy is stronger than vengeance. He owed me nothing. He owned nothing here. And according to the legal documents filed in 3 counties, he had no rights to return for any reason related to my family. Grandma, you're smiling, Jasmine observed. Just thinking about how lucky I am to have you here, helping me bake. She beamed, stirring the chocolate chips into the batter with serious concentration. Can I tell you something important? I asked. She nodded, eyes wide. Being strong isn't about being loud or violent. It's not about fighting or yelling or making scenes. Real strength is being 3 steps ahead. It's knowing what could happen and preparing for it. It's having the courage to protect what's yours, even when you have to do it quietly. Like a superhero. Exactly like a superhero, except instead of capes and powers, we have knowledge and preparation and people who love us enough to help when it matters. She thought about this while spooning batter into the muffin tin. Is that what you did for Mommy when she was sad about Daddy? Smart girl, too smart sometimes. Yes, baby, that's exactly what I did. Will you teach me how to do that too? I pulled her close, flour dust and all. I already am. The muffins went into the oven and we sat at the table while they baked, the same table where everything had changed that midnight 6 months ago. Jasmine colored in her book. I sipped my tea. Outside, the world moved on, unaware that a small war had been fought and won in this kitchen. Keisha came home an hour later with Anthony, their hands linked, her smile genuine. DJ burst through the door talking about his game-winning shot. The kitchen filled with noise and laughter and life. And I stood at my counter watching my family thrive, knowing that every recording was still saved, every document still filed, every contact still active. Not because I expected trouble, but because preparation is what love looks like when you've lived long enough to know that threats don't always announce themselves. If you learned anything from this story, remember this. Never underestimate a grandmother's love, because we've been fighting battles since before you were born, and we've never lost one that mattered. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and comment where you're watching from. Because every family needs a Miss Ruby, and every Miss Ruby needs to know she's not alone in protecting what matters most.